What's up, buddy? How are we doing today?
All good. Vacation mode. Stopped by a little town in Sicily just to tune in for this special podcast with old-time friends. So I'm excited.
Let's go. Appreciate you making time on your vacation for us.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, that's where I would like to be right now. That would be fun.
It's hot, Josh. Jess. I guess it's pretty much everywhere else, but it's really hot here. So yeah.
It's actually very beautiful here today. So you're right. Once I get out of this hovel of mine and out into the golf course later this evening, I'll be not wanting to be in Italy. I want to be exactly where I am.
Nice, Carlos. You're the founder of Terminal, previous founder of Forefront. For those that were around for the last cycle, I'm sure you remember it, and the builder of many, many other things. But I wanted to kick this off with Forefront, actually, which was a crypto media DAO that you started back in 2020. I think raised a couple $1 million for, and ultimately shut down, I think, last year. So I'm curious just what your kind of like high level reflections are on that journey, and ultimately like what about your hypothesis ended up being wrong, if that's kind of what ended up happening there.
Yeah, for sure. I think Forefront started as like a DAO around social tokens. I think we had big thesis on that would be like the next big thing. Yeah, we were wrong. I think we just maybe not wrong, but we were just so early, right? Ended up being, yeah, like very early. But it was fantastic because the energy that was around during that time, 19 to 21, I would say, around the future of DAOs, and just like it was incredible, right? So Forefront ended up like one of the things that I say a lot when I meet people that know Forefront, have been part of the Forefront journey, or even DAO air, I would call it that way, is that we end up being surrounded by fantastic human beings, right? They ended up doing amazing things today, and I think that alone was worth the journey. We decided to shut down because mostly PMF, I think like we just struggled to sort of like meet the market where it was at the time. A little bit of burnout as well. And yeah, it was probably like the best decision for the space. We sort of returned remaining capital to main investors back then. So I'm proud of that. Just clean slate and just continue to build as a builder. So yeah. On the thesis today, I think like we're seeing the thesis playing today, which is crazy, right? I think the flywheel, I think Zara is the best example of this because of the flywheel. I think that's the flywheel we sort of imagined back then. It's just the tech wasn't ready. I would say that, but also like, yeah, it was just the timing and the incentives were not matching the market, right? And adoption as well. So now we have incredible tech. It's just crazy to think this was just 3 years ago, right? But it's still standing, and it's exciting to see Zora and all these other, bays and everything else playing as we sort of imagined and dreamed of, dreamed about 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah.
I mean, it was wild to read through. I was reading through your fundraising announcement, and it was talking about AI 16 or FWB's round at $100+ million, and talking about the growing volume that was happening on Rally and Roll and all these social token platforms. And I was like, Jesus, this is a throwback.
Yeah, I'm curious. I mean, I think like clearly, social tokens, the same sort of thesis that underpinned them in a very different ways underpinning the meme coin thesis right now. We're also sort of in a bit of a doldrums around meme coins, I would say. I don't know, Josh, you're deeper in the trenches than I am right now. I'm curious, do you truly believe that the current mechanisms that we're using for these things are the ones that are going to endure, or do you sort of see another rebirth of and reimagining of this sort of underlying meta that maybe we saw in NFTs and then meme coins and something next, perhaps?
Yeah, I think like what I haven't seen yet, that I haven't felt that we have captured is the social value of the internet. We're sort of like touching a little bit of what that is, right? I think prediction market is moving towards that the social consensus of it. I think if obviously speculation, it's crazy because we sort of like everybody, like I remember forecasting early beginning is just sort of like going different sort of route, just denying speculation. And my thesis has always been that it's actually a feature, not a bug. And I'm glad everybody's sort of like, you know what, you can't go against the market. And I think like speculation of prediction market in terms of like social consensus is like the thing that I'm probably like very excited about. I want to see more experiments around that now that we have the tech. The tech is ready. Um, and the incentive seems a little bit more aligned. And we're not distracted with all this governance bullshit that we used to have in 2021 without PMF, right? But yeah, I think like the thing that is most exciting to me is like I posted on Farcaster, like I think everybody agree on this. Like everything on the internet of value of the internet will be tokenized. Now the question is, what's the true value of like the consensus, the social consensus layer of that tokenization, right? It's not purely financial, so to speak, right? What's the combination of those two? Yeah, but I'm excited to see prediction market being the topic and people experimenting at the edge of that. I think it's the purest form. I think Jacob wrote how that could be like positive sum sort of a system around that. I think I'm excited to see experiments around the social layer of crypto and different, just meeting the financial where we are in the tech.
Yeah, so now you're building terminal, and I think have been maybe for, I don't know, 6 months, maybe more, which you're calling a token marketplace. So I'm curious maybe tell us what that product is today and where you see the opportunity there.
Yeah, for sure. So Terminal, I launched Terminal like probably like a couple months after shutting down Forefront, and the thesis were like, I would envision a different sort of like marketplaces for tokens, different sort of tokens capturing different sort of like markets, within crypto. So Terminal came around that. How can we have a sort of like a terminal where you could um, have a glimpse or digest different markets on a specific blockchain. In this case, we focus mostly on Base, and this was born mostly after I launched Forecaster Index, which is just a marketplace for forecaster native tokens. And there was a need for something broader than just Forecaster ecosystem. It was just too small. So in the early stage, we sort of like before Zora had a token, we experimented with WoW. I don't know if anyone knows about WoW anymore, but like I've been just experimenting at the edge of like bringing different markets in making sense of them. Clanker, for example, we were like the first one that had like a social context around Clanker. Who launched Clanker? What's the conversation about that? Who the reputation of the founder, and then everything else together. So yeah, and Terminal has been experiment really around like building a community of like believers, so to speak, right? People that actually, the way we did a fair launch, and those that trade using the terminal. Those are like, sort of believe in the future where people, um, sort of capture a little bit of ownership of something very, very new and something very experimental. But yeah, it's been extremely difficult to build, in a world where like incentives and distribution is everything in crypto. But I'm happy to see some of the early thesis that we sort of like playing today, like sort of like coming to life today.
So you have a token for terminal, and you're leaning hard into token rewards and buybacks. Can you talk about the strategy here and the mechanics that you're using?
Yeah, for sure. This also was like maybe 8 months ago or so. Yeah, like the experimenting with tokens in early, like I feel like forever at this point. It always felt like there is this thing of ownership, like and the question really becomes like people don't could argue people don't really want responsibility; they want ownership in the case, in the form of like. Um, Participation of sorts. So I always been interested in playing with different sort of like um, distribution models. Let's say it this way. So Forecaster Terminal was like a fair launch. People could buy on the market. Um, and then we sort of like implemented like swap fees like any other DEX, and then we sort of like came up with this model where like 100% of those swap fees would go back to the community in the form of buybacks and revenue share. And we've been doing this every single week, where 60% of whatever fees we make goes back to top traders on Terminal, and 40% will go to Terminal buybacks. So until we actually reach like distribution and volume, capacity, it doesn't make sense that it's any other way, right? And we kind of went through a phase where we had to accumulate our own tokens from the market because we had none when we launched. And yeah, it's classic.
Classic.
makes makes no sense, but it just felt a thing back then. But we like things happen, right? Like, and now we're sort of like we have an incentive going on today, where like we're distributing 3% of our own like treasury back to top traders in the last 2 months or so, and historical as well. So I would say like revenue share is something I want to see more experiment. We're trying to do more experiments on that as well. I've been talking with Brian Flynn about this on mini in forms of mini apps as well. I think that's we need more experiment on that, but also buybacks that it reflects the growth of your platform. I think like buybacks for Terminal reflect the growth of Terminal. The more volume, the more fees that we sort of accumulate, the more buybacks. And so token holders sort of like feel they're part of the journey as well. And then if you're a top trader, you get to earn ETH every time you trade on Terminal. So I would say that those are the core two plays. Excited to play with more on the edge of those two as well.
Yes, you're a pretty prolific builder, and it seems like anytime there's a new kind of emerging narrative, you're there building something and experimenting around it. So I'm curious what other opportunities you're seeing or what some other products you want to build are.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I think I'm not sure if it's only me or it's just it's my own problem, something I need to sort of like go to therapy or something. I just can't help myself build new things, and it's just need more experiments. I just feel like if there's a strong thesis, I want to go on and build it, right? So my latest experiment, and because we've built Terminal in such a way that we have a powerful APIs, I can sort of spin up like financial products really quick. And one of them was like Tab, which is a social payments mini app on Farcaster, which like pretty much is powered by Terminal data. So I'm interested in very, very, very interested in just building, like ephemeral apps using like distribution platforms like Farcaster and Base App and WorldCoin and things like that. But I would say, it still remains like that social sort of like social financial layer, consensus social layer that is still sort of bugs me sometimes. Then I'm sort of exploring how that could be something that we can spin out of what I call Terminal Labs, right? But it's still early on. I think like I think that the hardest challenge here is just to stick around. Just hold on. Like my whole philosophy is just hold on a little bit longer, right? And just build what just high conviction and just go all in building something that I really want to see in the world. And that's really has been my philosophy, especially now that I've been a solo founder for the last year or so. So I've been just trying to sort of like, I don't want to burn out, I just want to survive and just build things that I want to see out there. But I would say like definitely like need more interfaces, trading interfaces that plays with all this different sort of like financialization mechanism. If the thesis is really about like any value on the internet will be tokenized, we need like different interface that capture different sort of aspect of that tokenization market, right? And I think like we want to find out what that is via like high experiments and high conviction experiments, what I used to call them. But yeah.
I've also seen you start to play around with some AI agents for, I think, some specific use cases like limit orders. I'm curious how you see that space. Is there some other features that you're looking to build there?
Yes. While building Terminal, we also launched. By the time, probably like the same time Banker was launched, we launched AI Terminal AI, which would do all this. Today is just sort of like the default building those things, but back then we used to experiment with your like natural language actions with AI. You could do trading, you could do limit order, you could do things. One area that I was experimenting that I was excited was really like combining that with like some sort of social context. So you'd be able to sort of like talk with AI about like markets, like what's happening on forecaster market. So if Terminal had all these different markets, you'd have access to all these different markets in a way that makes sense, right? That you don't have to, spend hours, browsing Twitter, and just cut through the noise and just get an understanding of the market and play with the market and do different bets. So We integrated different prediction market. We integrated limit order. We never launched a prediction market via poly market because I was looking for something more integrated with Forecaster, so we was building something more custom. But I would say, yeah, we did a lot of experiment on that end, and I think like we're still very early on how that would look like. I think automation of all these things is definitely inevitable. But then again, it goes back to distribution, right? It's it cannot just be another AI bot, right? It could be, it has to be something integrated deep within your platform that makes sense within what you're building. And for Terminal, that would be if the thesis of Terminal is being a tokens marketplace, then a terminal AI would be like your companion for like what's happening in different marketplaces. So it makes sense of like entire industry by looking at different granularly via these different marketplaces, but like sort of like could provide a thesis of like, okay, this is where we are going. You know what I mean? So looking to experiment more on that end. There are the fun things like distribution. I think like one thing that I would love to say is just, I think Jess is very familiar, is that we struggled back then to sort of like distribute value to people that contributed, distribute the ownership to people that we contribute real value. I think like as humans being, we're really, there's so much information we can sort of like process. I think AI can do a much better job at that, right? So looking to experiment with that as well. But yeah, I think it's early. I think the thesis is just like build what you like to see. I think that's the approach I'm taking, and we're definitely early, like a lot. But yeah.
Yeah, I love hearing your emphasis on distribution. The like whatever first time founder focuses on product, second time focuses on distribution, and I think you're on your like sixth time building something, so probably have a very intimate understanding of the importance of distribution.
Carlos, appreciate you hanging out with us today, man, and we'll let you get back to your vacation.
I appreciate it, guys. Have a good day. Thanks for inviting me. Yeah.
Of course, man. Peace.
Pleasure.